to Emerald Innovation Insights here at the European Venture Fair, where one of the major topics under consideration is the circular economy. My name is Neil Cameron, I'm with Emerald Technology Ventures, and we're fortunate to have with us Roelof Westerbeek, who is a 30-year veteran of activity in polymers and polymer packaging. He's an advisor to Emerald Technology Ventures. He's a former advisor to Unilever. He's had active roles at Amcor and at a variety of other major companies around the world, delivering real solutions to real people with real needs. And as I said, the topic here is packaging. 100 million tons of packaging plastics produced every year, which creates a $200 billion market or more. But all of a sudden, we have this additional stress, this additional pressure that is brought on board, where we have to deliver a circular solution. So how do the midstream players, how do the packaging players most effectively enable the circular economy?
Right. Yeah, it's a very valid question, and it's of course a big theme at the moment, whereas packaging historically served two purposes for the FMCGs, which is functionality, barrier properties, protecting the stuff that's inside, and secondly, branding. The packaging is part of the brand, and all of a sudden, and rightfully so, there is the need for circularity. And what you see is that the need for circularity drives a lot of dynamics in the value chain. And historically, the packaging value chain has been a quite static value chain, quite transactional, quite commodity, focused on low cost, with modest or moderate innovation. And all of a sudden, so there is this huge new drive for circularity. And it means that the packaging suppliers all of a sudden are expected to play a role that they have never played before. And this creates an interesting change in the value chain. So for the packaging companies, it means how do we change from a transactional, transformational or manufacturing step in the chain to an innovation chain? So how can we add the functionality of circularity to the solutions? And the thing that is important and what needs to happen there, which is a change from how the packaging industry works today, they need to work strategically across the value chain. So instead of transactional, they need to work strategically. In other words, they need to work with their supplier, which are the polymer suppliers, to come up with new circular solutions.
It's interesting. As a layman, I mean, my background is in polymer chemistry, but if I take off my technical hat and just put on my layman hat, I think 3 R's, right? If you want to have a circular economy, it's reduce, reuse, recycle, which seems like such a simple thing to do. But in your position, in the packaging position in the value chain, it seems to me that you're particularly well positioned to have a profound impact on exactly those things, right? I mean, it's not just reduce, reuse, recycle. It's not just make sure that the thing has a recycling label on it and make sure you're using recycling materials. But also it's adding smart labeling. It's making sure that you avoid the waste of all of these kinds of things. It's all about delivering solutions which are actually pre-configured to find their way back into the value chain, which historically hasn't been the case.
Yeah, so if you look at packaging, I think you need to distinguish two types of packaging. One is the rigid packaging. Most of it is monolayer, polypropylene, polyethylene, PET, and the other one is the flexible packaging. And these two different streams have very different complexity in becoming circular. So if you look at, let's say, the hard plastics, the rigid packaging, the polyolefins, the PET, actually it's relatively easy to go to circular solutions. It's bulky material, it's monomaterial, you can recycle it well, you can select it from the recycling streams well. So actually that's a relatively easy part. And if you look at PET, actually for PET there is a very well established recycling circularity stream. The issue is flexible packaging. And what is the issue in flexible packaging? 99% of flexible packaging is multi-layer of different chemistries and different polymers, and you're a polymer chemist, so you know this very well, which you cannot separate. And there's a reason why you have all these layers, because every layer has a different functionality. And the functionality has been tailored towards barrier and towards cost and towards branding. And now you need to redesign that. But the packaging companies cannot do that alone, because the solutions will actually not be brought by the packaging company. The solutions have to be brought by the polymer companies, because they own the chemistry. And the packaging companies are really a conversion industry. They glue together, and I say it a little bit simplistic, but they glue together a couple of layers to make a packaging right. But now you need one layer to be able to recycle it. But that one layer has to have the same barrier properties, at the same cost preferably, with the same, aesthetics and printability, etc., as the multi-layer solutions. And to me, the packaging company need to be the linking pin between what their customers, the FMCGs, want, and what the polymer suppliers can deliver. But a lot of the innovation actually will be upstream and not at the packaging suppliers per se. There will be new technology, how to convert those new solutions into packaging, but the packaging suppliers cannot do it alone. So there's going to be a very interesting strategic cooperation across the value chain. And as I said before, that value chain right now is very transactional. So it's not only that we need technical solutions, but we also need a fundamentally different approach how people work together in the value chain.
Right, but we're in a paradigm shift right now.
Yeah.
10 years ago, polymer packaging had no place in venture capital.
Yeah.
Last year, I did a deep dive research study on sustainable packaging, because all of a sudden it really, really matters. Big problems, big solutions, big rewards, exactly the kinds of things that we're looking for, which drives the kinetics of the experiment, right? All of a sudden things can happen very, very quickly. And I think, my hypothesis is that you and your you and your peers at the packaging level are going to be either enthusiastically adopting or being forced to adopt new technologies which will make the circular economy possible. So, for example, you will be increasingly adopting smart packaging, which allows traceability and trackability. You will increasingly be adopting new film properties. Deal flow just in the last 12 months has increased on this topic, where people are looking at novel barrier properties which do not contaminate the downstream recycling chain.
Correct.
And so you have a menu of things to play with that you simply did not have 5 years ago.
Correct.
And so this is an exciting time, I think.
Yeah, so for instance, if we talk about barrier properties, right, polymers have a certain characteristics. And within a certain polymer group, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to fundamentally change the barrier properties. So alternative, what you could do, and there is some interesting developments going on, is could we not introduce some nano coatings on a substrate of a simple material? And the nano coating has super barrier properties, usually inorganic nano coatings. But the nano coatings, the word already says it, are so thin that later on you don't find it back into the recycling streams. There is companies that are working on that. There is existing companies, there are startup companies. There is technologies that are required to put these nano coatings on the film. So there is companies that are looking at new technologies. But there is one catch, and the catch is the affordability. So there is an interesting dilemma at the moment downstream, that if you take a typical FMCG, they may spend $1 billion or $2 billion or even more on flexible packaging per year. So if there is technological and technical solutions for barrier and recyclability, but the cost of that packaging is 30 to 50% more, that's a challenge, because all of a sudden you don't spend $2 billion on your packaging, you spend $3 billion on your packaging. So what you see at the FMCGs now, they focus first on their premium brands to introduce this, but at a certain moment there's going to be a dilemma if they want to go to the big volumes, their single-use packaging, the sachets, etc. And I think that is a challenge at the moment. So how can you introduce the new technologies, but can you do it at an affordable cost?
I have every confidence that you and your peers will pull it off. Thank you so much for
Thank you
sharing
so
your
much.
thoughts with us
All right.
at this Emerald Innovation Session.
Thank you so much.